Harvard and MIT are right next to each other, for those who don't know. They're maybe a mile apart, walking distance, and they're also right next to a place called Kendall Square. All of this is in Cambridge. And Kendall Square is known as the most innovative square mile on the planet. It's got a ton of startups, spin-outs from Harvard and MIT, a lot of technology companies, densely packed in that little place. It probably is truly the most innovative square mile on the planet, and I see it signaled again and again throughout pop culture. That's where we're going to start in this video. Here is Kendall Square. You can see it's right next to MIT. Harvard is right up here somewhere, all within about a mile of each other. We'll start off with a book, which later was made into a movie by Stephen King called Cell. Like most of Stephen King's novels, it was set in New England, mainly Boston, which is right next to Cambridge. Cell was one of these apocalyptic movies. I think it had a nuclear plot to it. I didn't see it. I just heard about it. And everyone became zombies through their cell phones, I guess. The important thing was they had a character called Raggedy Man. Here he is. This is not a scene from the movie, I don't think. I think this is fan art. Raggedy Man, and he wore a Harvard sweatshirt. Date from the release of the book Cell to December 17th, and you get Harvard University, 2233. And then, 10 years later, they waited 10 years to get these numbers to line up. 10 years later, Cell was made into a movie, released on July 8th, 2016, and lo and behold, that syncs the same message, Harvard University. Not to mention a nuclear phrase, mass times speed of light squared. A few weeks before it was released in theaters, it was released direct to video. That way they can get Logan Airport synced in there. And here they are from the movie running through Logan Airport. After they return into zombies, I guess. These are spelled out in the first cipher, and these are, in my opinion, the biggest target in Cambridge, the Plasma Science and Fusion Center. So these may be the intended messages also, especially the Plasma Science and Fusion Center, also called the Plasma Fusion Center. So, they're definitely pointing to Harvard, and they're definitely pointing to something happening at Harvard that is not good. Raggedy Man in a Harvard sweatshirt. Where have we seen this before? We have seen this in the 90s in a movie called With Honors, a Brendan Fraser movie. Joe Pesci played a homeless guy who wore a Harvard sweatshirt. And I did see this movie. Based at Harvard? Raggedy Man, Harvard sweatshirt. Homeless man, Harvard sweatshirt. Looks like the same message. And we're going to see that gematria lines up too. With Honors was set at Harvard, and it had a plot, it's a decent film, plot centered around the Founding Fathers. Okay. Let's sync it from its release date in 94, April 29th. Again, mass times speed of light squared. Just like the title. So, Cell and With Honors had identical characters, identical locations, identical gematria for nuclear phrase mass times speed of light squared, and both synced with the same date. If you're smart enough to go to Harvard, you're smart enough to know that something is up here. And speaking of Founding Fathers, George Washington was a Freemason if there ever was one. He died the 14th of December, 1799, and look what happens when we sync that one. Harvard University, and 1799 spells its founder, John Harvard. This might have been planned for a very, very long time. So, okay, is it Harvard or MIT? I believe MIT is closer to the real target. I think it's the Plasma Science and Fusion Center. If you watch the final video tying together the whole theme, I think that fits the theme better than anything else. Hollywood is only pointing to Harvard, I think, because of its name recognition. It has household name value. Everybody knows what Harvard is. MIT, not so many people. Only the scientists know MIT, but everyone knows Harvard, and that's why Hollywood keeps pointing to it. They're all within a mile of each other. If you hit one, you just might hit them all. There was a movie called The Manhattan Project, like the Manhattan Project of World War II, where they developed the bomb. The Manhattan Project came out in 1986, just like mass energy equivalence. What do you know? And if you sync that with December 17th coming up, you will get the reactor and the nuclear laboratories next to it. MIT names their buildings with a numerical code. Northwest, southeast, I think, things like that. NW12A, NW12, NW13. The Simpsons went to MIT in an episode called The Town on October 9th, 2016. Here they are in front of whatever hall that is. Now, one of the most respected and revered figures of the Freemasons is a guy named Charles Stark Draper. He was the guy that got us to the moon. He invented inertial navigation, also called inertial guidance, that enabled guided rocket technology. It's basically a gyroscope, an accelerometer, and a few other devices. But he invented the ability to guide rockets. It's the same technology behind guided missiles, ICBMs, which are intercontinental ballistic missiles. So let's decode this episode. Yeah, inertial guidance system, inertial navigation, Charles Stark Draper, if we sync it with December 17th, and intercontinental ballistic missile. If you go to MIT, you should be taking note of this. Trump-tastic Voyage. This was not an episode, this was a promotional short. It was like 5 minutes long. They aired it in the summer of 2015. During that time where everybody was talking about Trump, he had just announced his presidential run on the escalator here. Trump-tastic Voyage looks like inertial navigation system. And if we sync back to Draper's death, July 25th, 87, and then sync forward from the episode to December 17th, we get inertial navigation, intercontinental ballistic missile. And let me tell you, 8910 is a tough number to get. The movie Good Will Hunting. This movie was totally a tribute to Charles Stark Draper and Kendall Square. It was set at both Harvard and MIT. Came out December 2 and December 5 of 97. We sync back to Draper's death. We get most innovative square mile on the planet and his inertial guidance system. If we sync forward from the other release date to December 17th, we get Technology Square. That is a little collection of 4 or 5 buildings within Kendall Square, of which Draper's Laboratory is the main building. The Charles Stark Draper Laboratory Incorporated is right here. It takes up most of Kendall Square. The rest is, I don't know if Novartis is there maybe, or Moderna, and a parking garage and Mass Bio, whatever that is. But Draper Laboratory is pretty much at least half of Technology Square. Now, the main character's name was Will, and it also starred the great, late Robin Williams. Turn the word Will upside down. Don't laugh, because the cult does this again and again. They do weird things like this. They turn words upside down to get numbers. Will. You could take it as 771, mass energy equivalence, or if you take the W as a sideways 3, you get the other nuclear phrase, mass times speed of light squared. The title definitely matches with MIT's nuclear reactor and their plasma science and fusion center. also called just the Plasma Fusion Center. Will's best friend was named Chucky, after Charles Stark Draper. It was not after the Charles River that runs right by Kendall Square. It meant Charles Stark Draper, and his girlfriend was named Skylar, because rockets go through the sky. Might be a common name now, but it wasn't a common name back in the 90s. That's why they named her Skylar. Now, the number 13 will be important later on. I'm kind of spilling the beans for the final video here. But it will be very important later on, and 13, the 7th Fibonacci number, looks just like Good Will Hunting. And look at that. Will even said he was lucky number 13 in the script. He's trying to convince Skylar that he had 12 brothers and he was the 13th. All these little inside jokes have a meaning. So that's Good Will Hunting. Mad Men was an American drama, I guess. I've never seen the show. But it had a main character named Don Draper. Here he is here on the left. That's Don Draper. The series began on 197, which spells Charles Stark Draper in the first cipher. And if you date from the series debut to December 17th, you get the Charles Stark Draper Laboratory Incorporated. And that "the" is part of the title. I usually don't use it. The series ended May 17th, 2015. Sync that one, and you get mass energy equivalence and the Smilo Center that we saw, I don't even know how many times now, all throughout the videos. The Joan and Joel Smilo Research Center. Now, I know there was a character named Joan in this series. I thought there might have been a character named Joel also. It would have been really, really good if there was. But I know there's a character named Joan, and I think it's this buxom woman right here, although it might be the frumpy woman here. One of them is named Joan, and I thought there was a character named Joel also. But like I said, I haven't seen the show. What if we connect the debut with the series finale? We get the original Draper Laboratory, the MIT Instrumentation Laboratory. That's what it was called before it was called Draper Laboratory, before it spun out and became its own entity. And if we sync from the debut back to Draper's death, we get Inertial Navigation System. And just so you know, this is how we got to the moon. NASA 666, the Apollo program 666, teamed up with Draper 666 from Kendall Square 666. And if we sync the moon landing to December 17th, inertial navigation, the technology that got us there. The Simpsons. We'll get all into the first episode in the final video, but the first episode as its own series was on December 17th of 89, and it started its skits on the Tracy Ullman Show on this date in 87. Sync both of those. The MIT Plasma Fusion Center, most innovative square mile on the planet. There was an episode called The Fabulous Faker Boy. I think there was a movie called The Fabulous Baker Boy. Didn't see that or this episode, but it's not hard to decode. It means mass energy equivalence, and when you sync it with December 17th, you get mass energy equivalence in Satanic. Episode 528 spells MIT. And what does the chalkboard clue say? The school is not falling apart. That's what Bart wrote on the chalkboard at the beginning. What school are they talking about? Probably this one. And if we sync to December 17th, 2022, we get the MIT Nuclear Research Reactor. In conclusion, I think Kendall Square, and in particular the MIT nuclear buildings, they're all connected, it looks like, but I think the Plasma Science and Fusion Center is the real target. Now, they're close enough to MIT and Harvard. If you hit one, you hit them both. in some cases, but I think the Plasma Science and Fusion Center is the real target because it fits the theme. You're tired of hearing me say this by now, but there is an underlying theme to all these locations that I believe is what's going on. Watch the final video after you watch the other videos to learn the theme. Thank you.